Arrogance meets accountability. The Providence Municipal Court had seen its share of tension, but rarely did arrogance enter so openly, like a physical presence, demanding attention before a case even began. Isabella Harrington's words cut through the hum of activity as if they were intended to assert dominion over the room itself. "You can't find me. I pay for half this street with my taxes." It was not a question. It was a declaration, an assertion that wealth equated to immunity. The words hung in the courtroom air, bold and certain, reaching every corner from the defense table to the gallery seats. Judge Frank Caprio, known for his measured patience and keen understanding of human behavior, paused in his work. His pen hovered over the paper, and then, with deliberate slowness, he set it down. Removing his reading glasses, he looked at the woman standing before him. Isabella was 39, impeccably dressed, designer handbag resting on the table, her expression a blend of surprise, confidence, and a hint of irritation at being interrupted from the routine of privilege she was accustomed to. Caprio did not need to raise his voice. Authority, grounded in fairness and wisdom, often spoke more powerfully in quiet observation than in volume. "You pay taxes," he said softly, meeting her gaze. "So does everyone else in this room. That doesn't exempt you from the law. It obligates you to follow it." Isabella blinked. Her surprise was brief, quickly masked by irritation. Her attorney, Mark Ellery, placed a calming hand on her forearm. She neither pushed it away nor softened her demeanor. To her, the matter was beneath attention, street-level nonsense. Caprio tilted his head slightly, weighing the interplay of entitlement and authority. "Street-level nonsense," he repeated, his voice deliberate. "You mean the citation you destroyed in front of an officer? The loading zone you blocked? The elderly business owner whose delivery you prevented?" She waved dismissively, as if the details themselves were trivial. "That's all exaggerated." "Is it?" Caprio's gaze did not waver. There was no intimidation in his tone, only clarity, precision, and the calm weight of responsibility. The clerk, Miss Reyes, called the case with practiced formality. "Case number 2-025 PK 7784, State versus Isabella Harrington. 4 counts: illegal parking in a designated loading zone, blocking a pedestrian right-of-way, destruction of a lawful citation, contempt for refusing lawful instructions from a peace officer." Mark Ellery stood immediately, his expensive suit a visual reminder of wealth's trappings. His tone was smooth, carefully measured to resolve the matter quickly. "Your Honor, Miss Harrington acknowledges the parking matter. We're prepared to pay all fines and any associated penalties today. She has no prior criminal record. She is an active member of several philanthropic organizations. This was a momentary lapse in judgment. We respectfully request immediate disposition." Caprio did not respond immediately. He looked directly at Isabella. "Is that how you see this? Something you pay and forget?" She shrugged. "That's what fines are for." "Fines," he said slowly, "are not invoices. Our consequences. This court decides accountability, not invoices." Her voice rose slightly toward her attorney, a barely audible complaint. "This is ridiculous." "What's ridiculous, Miss Harrington?" Caprio's tone invited honesty. "Being here for a parking ticket. For 4 violations," Caprio corrected, enumerating, including destruction of a legal document and contempt. "I didn't destroy anything," she replied, the defiance clear. Miss Reyes confirmed that there was a prior administrative warning on file. 9 months earlier, Isabella had received a written advisory for parking in a fire lane near the East Side Public Library, complete with educational materials. Caprio held her gaze. "So, this isn't your first time ignoring parking law. That was different." "How?" "I was attending a charity board meeting. I was late." "And being late," Caprio said, letting the words sink in, "gave you permission to block emergency access?" She did not answer. Her voice sharpened, deflecting into the realm of status and influence. "Do you know who my husband is?" "I know who you are, and that is enough," he replied evenly. She leaned back, smugness briefly returning. "This is street-level nonsense. I have meetings, real responsibilities." Caprio tilted his head, his eyes steady. "Real responsibilities like following the law, running programs that employ people, funding community initiatives, keeping this city functional, and you believe that gives you exemption? I believe it gives me perspective." Caprio opened her file, scanning the documented timeline. Then, without raising his voice, he began to detail the incident that had brought her to court. "On October 27th, at 10:42 a.m., you parked your vehicle across the entire loading zone in front of Lane's Medical Supply on Hope Street. A delivery of a motorized wheelchair for a disabled customer was scheduled. Because your vehicle blocked access, the delivery was delayed 47 minutes. The shop owner, Mr. Howard Lane, 73 years old, asked you to move your vehicle. You refused, stating, "I'll be 5 minutes. Deal with it." Isabella's jaw tightened. Caprio continued, his tone calm but insistent. The delivery driver left. The customer, an elderly woman with arthritis, had to wait another week. You obstructed not only a business operation but the dignity and well-being of those you impacted. Exhibit 3, please. The screen displayed a text message Isabella had sent to a city council aide. "I don't pay fines. People like me donate." The courtroom was silent. Isabella's face flushed, a rare crack in the veneer of entitlement. Officer Laia Mendes stepped forward to testify. Calm, professional, precise. She confirmed the timeline. Isabella exited the coffee shop, refused to move, tore the citation, and drove away. Mendes documented the incident meticulously. Mr. Lane was called to the stand. With decades of experience serving the community, his demeanor was patient, his voice steady, yet tinged with disappointment. All she had to say was, "Excuse me." Instead, she told me I was making a big deal out of nothing. My customer waited another week. The woman is 81, with arthritis. That wheelchair was essential for her mobility. Caprio turned back to Isabella. "Do you have anything to say to Mr. Lane?" "I didn't know about the wheelchair," she replied. "Would it have mattered?" The courtroom's attention remained fixed. Caprio leaned forward, almost gently. She didn't consider the impact of her choices. Authority is not optional. Respect is not optional. What you thought of as a minor inconvenience was, in reality, a failure of responsibility. Isabella's defenses faltered. Her confidence, once so sure, began to crack as the undeniable details, the security footage, the officer's report, the witness testimony aligned into a single, unflinching narrative of her misconduct. Caprio closed the initial review. The standard fine was $620. He imposed an $8,000 fine. $7,000 stayed conditionally, coupled with a rigorous program. 90 hours of community service assisting small businesses, personal apology letters to Mr. Lane and Officer Mendes, a public service announcement on respecting public spaces, an 8-week civic ethics course, and a 700-word reflection essay titled "Status is Not a Shield." Compliance would be monitored, and any attempt to delegate the service would trigger the full fine. Isabella's hands trembled slightly. "I understand. I'll do it," she said, the first genuine acknowledgement of accountability. The court adjourned. The real work, the transformation from entitlement to responsibility, was about to begin. Lessons in humility. The Providence Small Business Support Center was quiet on a Monday morning, the hum of fluorescent lights mingling with the faint creak of office chairs and the rustle of cardboard boxes. Isabella Harrington arrived promptly at 8:15 a.m., her designer clothes replaced with simple, practical attire suitable for work. The large, unassuming facility was a far cry from her usual world of boardrooms, galas, and private chauffeured vehicles. For the first time in her adult life, she was not in control. She was there to serve, not to command. Her supervisor, Carlos, a man who had run a corner store for 18 years, greeted her warmly but with the firm expectation that she would earn every moment of her placement. "Your first assignment," he said, handing her a clipboard, "is to restock inventory and assist with deliveries. Document everything. Pay attention to what goes where and why it matters." Isabella nodded, feeling the strange mix of indignation and curiosity that came with being removed from the comfort of entitlement. She lifted boxes heavier than anything she had handled in years, sorted supplies meticulously, and recorded her work in a log the way she had once recorded charitable donations. But this was different. The log was not about appearances or image. It was about accountability. Week 2. Isabella's first apology letter to Mr. Lane was returned by the court. The note from the clerk was simple but pointed, too formal, too detached. "Write like you mean it." For someone accustomed to crafting letters with carefully chosen words to impress boards and donors, this was humbling. She spent the evening drafting, erasing, and redrafting, realizing that sincerity could not be simulated, it could only be felt. Week 3. Ethics class. The facilitator asked a deceptively simple question. What does public responsibility mean? Isabella wrote her first honest response. "I don't know yet." She had never considered responsibility outside of the obligations imposed by her social position. Now, responsibility meant understanding the ripple effects of every choice, from blocking a loading zone to ignoring someone's need for a wheelchair. Week 4. Another week at the support center brought new challenges. Isabella helped Carlos unload a shipment of medical supplies, a shipment that mirrored the one she had obstructed weeks earlier. She noticed the labeling, the care with which the packages were stacked, and the urgency in the way deliveries were coordinated. She documented every detail, writing in her log, "I never thought about who was waiting. Each box, each package, affects someone's life. My time is not the only measure of importance." Week 5. She assisted a small business owner named Maria, a woman in her 60s running a flower shop with limited staff. Isabella helped carry heavy boxes of soil and planters to the back room. Maria spoke of her customers, of the families who relied on her services, and the challenges she faced every day. Isabella wrote later in her journal, "I thought wealth insulated me from responsibility. It only insulated me from seeing the real world. These people work harder in a day than I do in a month. Their lives are built on effort, not privilege." Week 6. Isabella's second apology letter to Mr. Lane was more concise and genuine. "I thought my time was more important than yours. I was wrong. I'm sorry." Lane responded simply, "Thank you. I hope you mean it." The brevity of his note struck her. It wasn't about grandeur or acknowledgement, it was about truth and recognition. Apologies, she realized, were not about eloquence, they were about ownership. Week 7. At the support center, Isabella assisted with inventory audits and helped organize deliveries to elderly residents. Each person she encountered added nuance to her understanding. She learned to ask questions. Who will receive this? How will it help them? How does this delay impact their life? She listened more than she spoke, a small but significant shift from the conversational dominance she had relied upon for decades. Week 8. She recorded her first public service announcement. The process was foreign. There were no stylists, no scriptwriters, only her, the camera, and the truth she had learned. She looked directly into the lens and said, "I blocked a loading zone because I thought my schedule mattered more than someone else's life. I was wrong. Public spaces are for everyone, including the people I ignored. I am committed to learning what it means to respect them." The PSA would later be reviewed by the court before airing on local television. It was a small, public acknowledgement of accountability, a tangible record of her transformation. Week 9. Officer Laia Mendes visited the support center to observe Isabella's engagement with the community. She watched as Isabella assisted an elderly man carrying groceries to his vehicle. Officer Mendes noted quietly afterward that her demeanor had shifted significantly since week 4. The sharpness of entitlement was replaced with attentiveness, and the subtle defensiveness was replaced with patience. Observers like Mendes became mirrors reflecting the genuine change that no amount of money or influence could fabricate. Week 10. Isabella submitted her reflection essay, 700 words, titled, "Status is not a shield." She wrote, "I have spent my life believing wealth exempted me from consequences. I now understand that authority is not something I get to choose when to respect. It is owed to everyone, including the people I have ignored or inconvenienced." Blocking a loading zone was not a minor infraction, it was a statement of disregard. "This has taught me humility, patience, and the importance of seeing the impact of my actions. True status is measured by how one serves others, not by the wealth one accumulates. I am still learning, but I am committed to walking this path fully." The act of writing became transformative. Every sentence required introspection. Every word demanded honesty. It was impossible to write without feeling the weight of her prior arrogance. Week 11. She assisted Carlos with a community outreach event, distributing care packages to elderly residents and disabled clients. She observed firsthand the gratitude, resilience, and quiet dignity of those she had previously overlooked. Isabella recorded, "I thought donations made me important. They only magnified the distance between me and those I was supposed to help. I can give money, but giving time is humbling and grounding. I am beginning to understand the difference between charity and accountability." Week 12. Isabella Harrington returned to the court for her final review. She stood alone, no attorney beside her, no designer handbag on the table. Caprio's gaze was calm, unwavering. "Speak," he said. Taking a deep breath, Isabella recounted her journey. "I completed everything you asked, 90 hours, both apology letters, the PSA, all the sessions. I met Mr. Lane, Carlos, Officer Mendes, and so many others. They taught me things I should have learned decades ago. I walked in thinking I was exempt. I wasn't. I was blind. I thought donations made me important. They didn't. They made me think I didn't have to care about the people those donations were supposed to help." Her voice was steady now, quieter, thoughtful. "I can't undo what I did to Mr. Lane or his customer, but I can make sure I never do it again." Caprio remained silent for a long moment, then spoke. "The stayed fine is remitted. You owe $1,000 payable today." She nodded. You've met the terms. That doesn't erase the harm. It means you've started to understand. The real test isn't what you did here, it's what you do when no one's watching. Isabella's eyes filled. Thank you, Your Honor. Caprio's voice softened. Don't thank me. Thank Mr. Lane. He gave you something you didn't deserve: humility, insight, and an understanding of forgiveness. The weeks of structured accountability had done more than fulfill a court order. They had reshaped her perception of responsibility, of public space, and of her own place in the community. Humility had replaced arrogance. Awareness had replaced ignorance. And every action she took thereafter, restocking shelves, carrying packages, interacting with residents, was measured, intentional, and mindful. Transformation and legacy. The weeks after Isabella Harrington's court-ordered community service were quiet at first. She no longer moved through her world with the assumption of automatic deference. The training, the reflections, and the direct exposure to the lives affected by her prior behavior had instilled a new consciousness. Each Saturday, she returned to the Providence Small Business Support Center, greeted by the familiar hum of activity. Boxes stacked in neat rows, carts rolling down hallways, and the soft murmur of conversation among staff and volunteers. But for Isabella, these sounds no longer felt foreign. They were rhythms she had come to respect. Her supervisor, Carlos, observed the subtle transformation closely. At first, he had been skeptical. Could someone so accustomed to privilege truly understand the weight of accountability? By week 4, his doubts began to dissolve. Isabella no longer treated tasks as inconveniences. She approached every assignment with meticulous care, sorting medical supplies, ensuring delivery orders were accurate, checking expiration dates, and labeling packages for easy access. Every box was a lesson in humility. "This isn't about me," she wrote in her log. "It's about the people who depend on these items. Their lives are impacted by my choices." Her apology letters to Mr. Lane evolved in tone and depth over the weeks. The first, returned as too formal, had read like a polished corporate memo. The second, concise and sincere, marked her growing awareness. "I thought my time was more important than yours. I was wrong. I'm sorry." Lane's response, short yet affirming, had resonated deeply. "Thank you. I hope you mean it." This moment, small and private, represented a turning point. Isabella understood that the value of an apology lay not in words, but in intent, reflection, and subsequent action. By week 6, she encountered Marcus, a retired veteran who had lost both legs in service. Marcus's story was not one of bitterness or resentment, but of resilience. He described the daily challenges of navigating the city in a wheelchair, the obstacles others ignored, and the frustration of seeing public spaces obstructed by those who failed to consider their impact. "People don't see the chair," Marcus said. "They see an obstacle. And every time someone thinks the rules don't apply to them, it makes our world harder to navigate." Isabella recorded these conversations meticulously, realizing the scale of the impact her arrogance had once caused. Her reflection essays became increasingly introspective. "I spent decades believing that wealth insulated me from consequences," she wrote. "I now understand that it insulated me from seeing the real lives of people around me. Authority is not something I get to choose when to respect. It is owed to everyone, including those I ignored or inconvenienced. True status is measured by service and accountability, not by bank accounts or board memberships." Writing these essays was more than a formality. It was a process of internal reckoning. She confronted her blind spots, her entitlement, and the patterns of behavior that had allowed her to move through the world unchallenged for so long. Week 8 brought her first public service announcement, PSA. Unlike the polished productions she was accustomed to in her philanthropic work, this one was raw and direct. She stood before a simple camera, speaking plainly. "I blocked a loading zone because I thought my schedule mattered more than someone else's life. I was wrong. Public spaces are for everyone, including the people I ignored. I am committed to learning what it means to respect them." Watching the playback, Isabella was struck by the honesty reflected in her own eyes. There were no filters, no layers of social pretense, just accountability. The following weeks deepened her exposure to the realities she had ignored. She assisted elderly residents carrying groceries, helped staff organize deliveries for disabled customers, and attended ethics and civic responsibility sessions that challenged her to think critically about her impact. Officer Leah Mendes visited the center in week 9 to observe Isabella's engagement. She noted a tangible change, a sharpness of entitlement replaced with attentiveness, defensiveness replaced with patience. Mendes later remarked, "It's rare to see someone embrace accountability with this level of sincerity. She's learning to see beyond herself." Week 10 brought her final reflection essay, now fully integrating her experiences into a personal philosophy. Titled, "Status is Not a Shield," she wrote, "I have spent my life believing that wealth exempted me from the consequences of my actions. I now understand that authority is not optional. It is a responsibility. My obligations extend to everyone impacted by my choices. From a disabled customer waiting for a wheelchair to a small business owner relying on timely deliveries. Blocking a loading zone was not trivial. It was a statement of disregard. Humility, attentiveness, and genuine care are now my measures of responsibility. True status is earned through service, not assumed through wealth. I am committed to practicing this principle daily, beyond the confines of court orders." Week 12 marked her final day of required service. Isabella arrived at the center with a mixture of anticipation and apprehension. She had completed 90 hours, written both apology letters, recorded her PSA, attended every session, and submitted her essays. But the real transformation, she realized, could not be measured in hours or assignments. It would be reflected in her actions moving forward when no one was watching. In court that day, she stood alone. No attorney, no entourage, no designer handbag. Judge Caprio's presence was steady, expectant. "Speak," he said. She took a deep breath. "I completed everything you asked. 90 hours, both letters, the PSA, all sessions. I met Mr. Lane, Carlos, Officer Mendes, and so many others. They taught me things I should have learned decades ago. I walked in here thinking I was exempt. I wasn't. I was blind. I thought my donations made me important. They didn't. They made me think I didn't have to care about the people those donations were supposed to help." Her voice was steady, measured, and clear. "I cannot undo the harm I caused to Mr. Lane or his customer, but I can ensure I never repeat it. I am committed to understanding and respecting the lives of others in all my future actions. I am not asking for forgiveness. I am asking for the opportunity to live with integrity and accountability." Caprio remained silent for a long moment, then spoke. "The stayed portion of your fine is remitted. You owe $1,000 payable today. You have met the terms. That doesn't erase the harm, but it confirms that you have begun the work. The real test is not here in the courtroom. It is every day in every interaction that follows." Isabella's eyes filled. "Thank you, Your Honor," she said. Caprio's voice softened. "Don't thank me. Thank Mr. Lane. He gave you something invaluable: perspective, humility, and an understanding of forgiveness." The policy changes stemming from this case were significant. Providence Municipal Court adopted a district-wide loading zone enforcement program, ensuring that repeat offenders faced escalating penalties and mandatory community service. An anti-influence firewall was established, preventing communications from donors or philanthropic representatives from reaching judicial chambers without prior screening. A quarterly public oversight log was implemented to document attempted influence, reinforcing transparency and accountability in the court system. Within the first quarter, 3 attempted influence cases were recorded and declined, demonstrating the effectiveness of these new safeguards. Lane's medical supply business received an anonymous donation of $5,000. The memo line reading, "For the customers I delayed, Officer Laia Mendez received a formal commendation for her role in monitoring and supporting the implementation of Isabella's accountability program." The complaint review process concluded with no findings against her, emphasizing that the focus was on positive community transformation rather than punishment alone. Isabella continued her volunteer work quietly. She did not publicize her efforts. She did not include it in board bios or philanthropic reports. Every Saturday, she showed up to restock supplies, assist with deliveries, and engage with residents and business owners. Over time, her presence became a constant and stabilizing factor within the support center. Those who worked alongside her noted the humility, attentiveness, and genuine care she brought to every task. Her personal reflections deepened. She wrote in her journal, "I once believed confidence without humility was strength. Now I know it is fragile and fleeting. True strength lies in awareness, empathy, and action. Every interaction is an opportunity to demonstrate respect and accountability. Wealth does not exempt one from the responsibilities we owe to others. It magnifies them." Judge Caprio maintained a handwritten note on his desk that he read every morning. "Confidence without humility collapses. Respect is the weight of character." Isabella came to understand the profound resonance of this statement. Every act of service, every apology, every small acknowledgement of someone else's need became a brick in the structure of her renewed character. Months later, when Isabella reflected on the experience, she realized the court order had done more than enforce compliance. It had catalyzed genuine personal growth. The work, once imposed externally, became internalized. Humility and accountability were no longer abstract concepts. They were daily practices embedded in her routines, decisions, and interactions. The transformation was lasting because it was deliberate, measured, and continuous. The community, too, felt the impact. Small business owners reported improved adherence to public space regulations, and the support center noted increased engagement from volunteers inspired by Isabella's example. Her PSAs aired locally, educating the public about respect for shared spaces and the responsibilities of those with influence. They prompted discussions in local schools, civic organizations, and neighborhood associations about civic duty, empathy, and the ethical use of wealth and status. Isabella Harrington's journey from entitlement to accountability became a model for restorative justice in Providence. The emphasis was not on punishment alone, but on rehabilitation, understanding, and meaningful contribution. The long-term impact extended beyond her personal growth. It influenced systemic policies, community engagement, and public awareness. The case demonstrated that consequences, when paired with structured reflection and service,